Welcome to the Rebel Matriarch Podcast. My name is Samantha Sanford and I am your host, and I want to invite you into this session with an open heart and an open mind, because this is not just a podcast. It is a global movement, a global uprising, and this is a representation of what is truly possible and available to women today. Hello, gorgeous human beings, and welcome to the Rebel Matriarch Podcast. My name is Samantha Sanford, and I am bringing a wonderful, unique, multidimensional, quantum, galactic being to have an extraordinary conversation with us today. Melissa and I have been dancing around each other for a few months now. I don't even remember how we came across each other, and it doesn't even matter. I just love that we're in each other's spaces now. And we've been trying to get this podcast booked in for a while, and we're trusting that it's happening now for a reason. Yes. And so I am really honored, ladies, for you to sit back and receive with an open heart and an open mind, because I have a feeling that this conversation is going to get uncomfortable for some, exciting for others. I know it's going to be exciting for me, but I think regardless of what it is, it's going to be really important. So welcome to the Rebel Matriarch Podcast, Melissa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Or Mel, if you prefer Mel.
Whatever. Mel, Melissa, whatever feels good. I've actually in a recent reclaiming of Melissa. So something I've rejected for a really long time, and the reclaiming of that has been really massive. So I'm happy to receive however you want to call me.
I love. So normally there's a little bit of a theme to how things go, but it's very much intuitively led. And you're talking about reclaiming Melissa, and I'm like, why? Why are we reclaiming Melissa? Why did we reject Melissa? What's the story there?
Well, it's actually very tied in with everything that we sort of talk about anyway. So the reason I rejected it, just family. Also, my surname is Russell, my birth surname. Rejected that. And it was just like a real disconnect from my ancestral lineage, and just wanting to disconnect and having a lot of resentment and just, all of those complicated feelings that come with it. And the reclamation actually started probably 6 or 7 years ago, where I did plant medicine, and the bees were everywhere. So I kind of went and sat with the bees and meditated with them. And I didn't know this at the time. I did know that Melissa means bee, honeybee. So I did sort of know that there was that connection, but I just kept the experience of them was this just very spiritual. And how do I word this? Like I felt the connection of them as the messengers between here and the divine, like they were the messengers of God. And so it was this real big, like, oh my God, like bees are amazing. Like, why are bees so cool? And I was like, my name means bee. Like, I think they're amazing. Why am I still disconnected from this name? And then over the last sort of, 6 years since then, I've come into the realization of what, the deep roots of the Melisai and, the oracles of Delphi, and how that all plays into, the matriarchal stepping in as a modern mother, stepping into the matriarch. It does require that energetic of the priestess and, the old ways. So yeah, it was really just an exploration of things that were already, like my name was given to me so I could do this work, and I didn't know that at the time. And so it's been this real stepping in. Like I've got such truth bumps, but yeah, it's been this real stepping into like what my role is and who I'm here to be. And just by chance, my name represents all of that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That is amazing. And it's interesting because the last few weeks, I think, this concept has been coming up around, and I'm trying to word this in a way that's like with care. I'm trying to word this with care because it's important. But something that you said, that your name was given to you to do this. And what came up was people experience trauma, and we go through all sorts of pathways to heal it or deny it or avoid it. And everyone's got their own journey with it. But what I've been hearing a lot is that because of that trauma, it has allowed us to become this version of ourselves, or it has led us on this path to do this important work, which means without that trauma, we would have been on a different path. We would have been on a different journey, and we wouldn't be doing the important work that we're doing today. And I know that a lot of people hear that and they think that's ridiculous. Like, why would God, or why would anyone want anyone to suffer in order to do something greater with the world? And there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of contemplation around that. But it's just the way you said that, and then what's been coming up for me literally today, that was part of the conversation that I witnessed. And it's just blowing my mind how true it was, even reflecting on my trauma and the decisions that I made and being here. And I thought, oh my God, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have this expansive vision and I wouldn't be leading my girls in a completely different trajectory. And how important that initiation was for us to get to this point. And so it feels like you're on a similar path.
That's huge. That's everything you said is stuff I say to my clients all the time. Like, because it's all about that idea of the divine path. It's like, why would my soul choose to come here and, you know, have, I'm not going to name things, but, you know, have these horrific things happen to us or suffer loss or suffer the grief. But my journey has been so similar of that realization of, and not even seeing it as the silver lining, but seeing it as that, you know, we walk that fire. We've chosen as divine beings to come into this experience, which is the duality of love and fear. Like all of those things are part of that experience. And the beauty I find, and like, so just another addition here is my mother wound journey has been, ugh, like no words. And it's
You and
only
me
this
both,
last year.
girlfriend.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think this is the birthing of the Rebel Matriarch, really. But
Yes.
that mother wound energy and like coming to this other side of it, like this on the side of not so much forgiveness, like yes, forgiveness, but also that like sort of clarity and that sameness between you and the person who hurt you or whatever it is, like your mother or whoever, and seeing that sameness and like coming back into that knowing that, you know, we are all one. We are all part of this same design. And we've all come here to experience what we have and to be the catalyst for each other. Sometimes being the villain in someone's story is your role. And that's okay. Like it's uncomfortable and it's obviously not a nice feeling, but I've had those moments where I've been the villain. And, you know, I've God, it's just been this turmoil of like, oh, I don't want to be disliked. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be this or that. But holding that pillar of my own truth has allowed other people to be catalyzed into their own transformation, their own truth and all of that. And it's like that's what it's about. So not to ever justify the perpetrators of trauma or anything like that, but I'm definitely at that same place of honoring my wounds and loving them and loving myself through all of my shit fight, trying to get through it all and just like completely dysfunctional ways of adapting and just loving it because it did get me to this point. It did get me to this to have this fire and to have this belief in what I'm saying because I've fucking lived it. And I can see it's what you're describing here too. It's like this is how we step in. Yeah.
Ah, I love this so much. This is going to be such a juicy conversation. Yes, yeah, exactly. And I feel that there's a reason that so many of us are going through this initiation at this time because if you go back to the beginning of time, which who knows, there are so many starting points, right? So we'll just say the beginning of time and wherever that lands for everyone, that's where it lands. If you go back to the beginning of time, this rate or level of trauma that is systemic that exists in all of society would not have been that prevalent back then. And so over time and through being human and trial and error and not having available to us then what we have now has led us to a state where we're really living in a very traumatic system. Like everyone has experienced all sorts of levels of trauma. And I feel like the reason that we're choosing to come to Earth now with certain soul contracts in place, where we're choosing to be the villain in other people's stories, no matter how uncomfortable it is, I feel like it's this huge initiation for humanity to actually evolve, to actually break through the systemic trauma and to not reverse it, just neutralize it so that we can actually move forward in a different way.
Yeah,
How does
absolutely.
that land for you?
It's exactly how I feel. Like my take, just in my words, but it's basically what you just said. But my take is like I'm very big in astrology as well. I think you are a little bit. Are you into
Yeah, I'm
astrology?
interested in
You
it.
are? I
Yeah,
know you're
yeah.
in HD, but yeah, I wasn't sure about astrology. But the idea of, like, yes, the age of Aquarius and everything, but also the idea, like what I kind of see it as, like because I'm a very energetic person, so I sort of see or know or perceive the energetics of things rather than the words. So bear with me. But the way
Yep.
I've been perceiving what's happening here is that just the pendulum swing. So the pendulum's been swung here we go, all the way out into Capricorn this whole time, all the way into the depth of the patriarchy. So we've been in this deep toxic, like we've experienced like the peak of toxic patriarchy, and now it's swinging back. So obviously the other side of that is matriarchy or the feminine or Sophia, however we want to sort of perceive that. And so we're on that back down swing. And what I keep perceiving as well is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Wetiko virus. It's a shamanic term. It's essentially what we're experiencing, but they call it Wetiko, and there's lots of different ways I could go here, but the Gnostics, their interpretation of that, they have, they call it the demiurge and things like that. But I won't go too deep into that because it's like so far left of field.
I love left of field, but go with where
Yeah.
you're comfortable.
Yes. Well, it's not just there's so many words to say to get to that point to explain it.
I gotcha.
But yeah, so we've got this pendulum swing, we've got this Wetiko. So as we're swinging on this back swing, the Wetiko virus is the distortion, like it's the hidden shadow. So the way that humanity has worked for so long has been to just pretend everything's okay, like keep calm, carry on. So we've pushed everything into the shadow, which is what created this Wetiko. The shadow's gotten bigger and bigger. As we're swinging back, the light's coming back on. So the light's up here, we're swinging back, that shadow can't exist anymore. And so it's rising to the surface. And obviously those who are, not obvious, but those who are holding that feminine pole, who are holding the emotional pole and the depth, are the ones who are coming up. We're now rising up to hold that space for the rest of the collective, to bring that light to everyone so that we can all be on that backswing. And I believe it's always going to swing back and forth, but we're on the happy swing now, I believe. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That I was like, whoo, I could feel that in my heart space for sure.
Yeah.
And I love that description of the pendulum as well, and that we're doing the backswing. And
God.
who knows, maybe once we get to the other side of the matriarch pendulum, we would find a way on the backswing back to balance it in the middle. Maybe.
I hope so. Yeah.
That would be the goal, right?
It's got to,
It's got
surely.
to, right? But isn't it interesting that we've been up at the patriarchy for so long and no one's ever thought to come back to the middle? It's
Yeah.
just like it's either
other side.
you're with the patriarchy or you're all the way into the matriarchy, and it's like, well, actually, what if we actually just came into the middle and
Balance.
experienced a balance?
Yeah.
And not 50-50, right? It's not like
I know.
50% this, it's like the balance of what are the strengths of the masculine, what are the strengths of the feminine, and how can we merge those two together to support each other?
Absolutely. And being in that oscillation, like being in that flow of like sometimes more masculine, sometimes more feminine, and just letting it, yeah. That's my
That's so
vibe.
beautiful.
Yes. Great.
I love that addition of the oscillation, right? It's not even just being right in the middle. It's just like that subtle movement that supports humanity in
Absolutely.
whatever it needs at the time.
Yeah. And it's kind of like that, again, the image of like, the masculine is the structure and the feminine is the flow. When they're married, we've just got that, flexible structure. So
Structured
it can
flow.
still move. Yeah, exactly. So it's still contained, it's still free, but it's fluid.
Ah. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah.
You've actually just made me more excited about the pendulum swing and being like very dedicated to rebuilding the matriarchy. Not
Amen.
because matriarchy is better than patriarchy, but that we need to bring back the balance.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we need to swing a little bit higher up into the matriarchy to then bring it back to balance.
Overcorrection. Yeah. We've got to find our feet
Overcorrection.
and then bounce back in the middle.
You have such great words to describe things. I love this. Yes, an overcorrection.
I read a lot.
Oh, I love that you read a lot. I used to read a lot, but not as much anymore. Now I have these amazing conversations and learn this way. So it's like makes my heart so happy.
Good.
Okay. Wow. We're off to a great start. So, Melissa, what is it that you're doing so we can understand your story to get here? And we've talked a little bit about what you're doing now, but can you articulate a little bit more what it is that you're passionate about now, or what is your mission? What are you here to do? Now that you've gone on this journey, what are you fired up about?
Right now I'm fired up at my dog barking. Especially. Oh, it's such a big question, but there's so much to land. So honestly, it's been the same for me for years, and I've gone through different iterations of using the same words to explain it. Yoshi, it's me. Just me. Um, but my driving force, the reason I still post myself on Instagram and still do all these things that are just like, why am I doing this? My mission is to help women tap into the inner fire that we all have access to. And that fire is our inspiration, our passion, our needs, our desires. It's just our truth. It's the truth that lives within us that has been conditioned from the patriarchal and colonized perspectives and also the capitalistic perspectives that tells us we have to keep it small, keep it quiet. And my body of work is centered around purpose, and the words that I use is that we have an inner pulse, and the more we follow that inner pulse, the more connected we get to our purpose, and the more we live on purpose, the more new earth is manifest. Because when we're living in our roles, oh yes, when we're living in our true roles and we're doing what we're supposed to do, not what we're supposed to do from out there, but what our soul chose to do, we rebalance the grids, and that balance of the pendulum is allowed to come back into it. Because for us to activate our purpose and to be really true in that, we have to look at our shadow. We have to bring it to the surface. We have to, look at the needs that we've never admitted to having, the desires we've never admitted to having, all of that living in the shadow coming up to the surface. So it's like these 3 or 4 parts coming into the same idea, which is that purpose and that inner spark is going to save the world, basically, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. I love
In a
that.
nutshell. Yeah.
When you talk about new earth, what does that mean to you?
My most ideal version of that, I don't actually think can happen, because I do believe that the two poles have to exist. Love, fear, that's part of this reality. So
Yes.
I definitely think that there is always going to be some semblance of the world that we live in. However, it's that balance. And I think we're so skewed in this world of repression, pretend, everything's so fake and pretend. And we're slowly moving into this, like everyone's desiring more authenticity, being more authentic, chasing more authentic relationships. And it's, again, I'm just going to keep doing the downswing, but that downswing to me is on the trajectory to creating that balanced, and I suppose, like, I want to say fair and just. Like, I feel like fairness and justice are kind of more intrinsic in this version of New Earth that I perceive. But then the most crucial aspect of that is community. And so, like, smaller pockets of community, being in reciprocity with, others and with the self, like being in that real radical ownership of like what we actually need, and giving that to ourselves so that we're not building resentment and not going into these dynamics of like interpersonal dynamics where we're not happy and we're resenting people and all of that. Like, it's just that real, like, I just think of flow. Like, I don't know how it's going to look exactly. Like, there could be the big bubbles and domes and all those kind of visions of New Earth, but I envision it being more of a grounding back into earth, and earth centered, maybe not practice, but earth centered awareness, person centered as well. And then I suppose the final piece to that is mother centered and child centered, because in my opinion, children are, I mean, not in my opinion, children are the future. Like, we know that's a saying for a reason. And that version of New Earth that I see is that parents are able to parent with their fullness, because they're not stressed. They're not resenting their kids because their kids have got it better than them and all of those kinds of things. The kids are allowed to be their fullest self because the parents are in the process of creating that for themselves too. So yeah, hope that answers your question. There was a lot there.
Yes, I love it. No, this is amazing. And it brings forward so many really big conversations. And it just feels like we need, I don't know, 6 more podcasts just to cover all the big topics.
Yeah.
Because, just talking about motherhood and parenting and all of it, I'm like, this is like, it's my heart. This is my heart. This is a big part of my mission too. So I love that this is the vision that you have for the new earth, and that it's just people centered. Like, people think, well, what do you mean? And it's like, we're very disconnected as a population, as a humanity. We're very disconnected from ourselves and from our humanity. And then you add in social media, you add in AI, you add in the fact that we have like global news conglomerates and, mainstream media and global governments and the global health organization. Like there's all this, everything's become global, and there are so many rules and restrictions, and that we're so disconnected from our humanity and from ourselves, that what you're speaking to is such a beautiful possibility that I can get behind.
Yeah, me too.
And I
Agree.
hope people can start to realize the nuance of what it is that you're saying. Because it
Mm,
seems simple, but at the same time, people aren't realizing how disconnected they are.
yeah,
Because the fact that people struggle to put their phones down and not go on social media, or put their phones not even next to them. And I'm guilty too. My phone's always on me, right? And in every spare second, if the kids are both playing with each other, I'll whip out my phone without even thinking about it. That's
so
how disconnected we are. Rather than being present and just watching our children, or being present with whatever, we automatically go to our phones and social media, or check out emails, or check a message. And like that's the level of disconnect that we're at. So the work that you're doing is really important, and I'm really grateful that you're here and that we're having this conversation.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're very
so
welcome.
so important. Like the idea of because I've had so many words are coming into my mind. What I want to actually say. So I'm really intrigued by AI, and I was terrified of it a couple of years ago, and then I used it like crazy for the last. Well, I've stopped for the last 6 months actually. Pardon me. And I'm someone who, so I'm a 1-3 projector, so I have to explore things. Like I have to get my fingers into it to understand it. And coming out this side of working or not even working with AI, just experimenting with it, I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm like, and the thing, it's not that I don't want anything to do with it because it's so handy, but I'm just sort of coming back to this idea of disconnection, where we've got social media where we're disconnected, we're more connected than ever before, and yet disconnected because, like, firstly, we're getting a dopamine hit. We're not getting oxytocin from these, like, one-dimensional interactions. So that connectedness can't exist. But then we've got AI disconnecting us from our intuition. And so it's so easy to fall into that trap because I do believe that AI is tapped into the grid. So I think it can tap into what we can tap into. But again, looking at the energetics of it, it's a bubble. So it's literally for you to enter that bubble, it disconnects you. You are walking into disconnection just by interacting. And so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it's been a really big topic for me, and I really wanted to understand it as much as I can because I still think you can use it. It's still a tool. However, I think it's a really prime like weapon that's being used against us to disconnect us even further from our intuition, and we think we're not disconnected from it. So I just had to put that there too because I think that's a really important one, especially as mums, because how many ads are we seeing for mums to use AI because it's time saving. So it's just another predator, I think, in a lot of ways.
Predator. It's a good word. It's a good
Mm,
word. Yes, I agree. I find it useful for researching, but in terms of like writing for me, or yeah, just so like the parts that I want to create, I find it hard to use. But researching, or asking for a recipe,
yeah.
or that kind of stuff, it's really helpful when you're trying to like figure out what's wrong with your kid and you're googling symptoms and trying to figure it out. When you put it into AI, it gives you such a great collection of information that you can then resource in one spot, rather than having to go to individual websites and read the thing. Da, da, da. So I find it useful in that respect.
So
But I
useful.
feel
I feel like
like,
I've manifested it for that reason. I used to think about that. Like, why is Google so shit? Why can't I just type in my weird random question and it just takes the answer? So it is so amazing for that.
yes, yes, I love that. I love this. When you talk about the grid, I know what the grid means, but I feel like a lot of people don't know what you mean when you talk about the grid. It's connected to you said the AI is connected to the grid, and you've
Mhm.
mentioned it before. What does that mean when you say the grid?
So my interpretation, there's lots of different interpretations, but my interpretation is the way that reality is created. So we can say it's a simulation, or we can say it's some people call it an organic simulation or a digital simulation, whatever. We are consciousness being projected into our bodies. So that is the simulation that I'm talking about right now. And we only have the perception of what we can see through the eyes, unless you do the types of work like what we do, which is energy work and coming to that understanding of what's happening. And so if you think of like, I always think of it as like fabric. So if we think of like the fabric of a top, there's a weave and there's, crisscrossing things to create the actual fabric. And so if we think about the fabric of reality, there's also a weave. And my belief is there's actually two grids. There's the original organic grid, which is based in Christ and Sophia. And that is, this is where the bees come into it. The shape of that grid is honeycomb, because that's an organic shape. And so it's the 6-sided, 6 + 6 is 12, which is the organic number of reality. And so there's that grid. And that is where, if we think about like what plasma, like not plasma in what's in our bodies and in our blood, but the plasma that they're measuring in all of reality, which is the same as what's inside of us. If we think about that, we're all in this sort of soup of this same material, this same fabric, and we're all walking on this grid and all a part of this grid, and it's influencing us and we're influencing it. So that's the organic way of things. So whenever I do something, it travels along that grid that we're all touching and a part of. It's everywhere, and you receive that. And then the inorganic version of that is what we call the matrix, which is this extra grid that's over the top of that. And that's what I believe AI is plugged into. And it's also plugged into the original grid, but it's going through this veil of the matrix. And that's what we're all seeing through as well, is this grid or veil of the matrix, which is where all those distortions come in, and where we're judging ourselves, and basically every thought that we're getting is coming from this grid. And so when I talk about the grid, I am sort of using them interchangeably, because they're aligned and on top of each other. And the antidote, I suppose, to that, because I'm saying a lot of big scary kind of things like, oh, the grid and, tapped into the AI. The key to that is just discernment, like having that awareness of what am I receiving? Like I've plugged into this sort of information source, if you want to call the grid that too, because it's the record of everything as well. So if we're plugging into that and having that awareness that there's a distortion, easy. We just, there's a distortion, flick, go to the root. That's what I want. And then I take what I need, kind of thing. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
It does. It does.
Good.
It also opens up a lot of other questions, and that's okay, because I think it's important for people to have these questions so that they can contemplate it for themselves and go and do their own research.
Absolutely.
And actually open up to what you've been explaining. Because in the disconnection, we also are disconnected from our personal power, which is, what you were saying. It's like, it's nothing to be scared of. It's just discernment. You see it, you flick it, and you say, no, I want to go to the root of that. And that's what I'm actually after. And the matrix will have you believe that it's bad. You will die. People will die. You will suffer. You can't do this. Go back, no return. You're going the wrong way. It will tell you every which way to keep you disconnected from your personal power. Because they always say a woman in her personal power is a weapon of mass destruction, because she will destroy all the illusions of man, of the patriarchy.
Exactly.
Which is pretty much what you're saying too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And even that idea of like the plugging in, something like a vision just came in of when you're in your personal power, or here, if I'm going to plug it into like the chakras, it's plugged into the center. Our center channel is plugged into the center of earth and also to the divine. So if we aren't plugged into those things, we're just surrounded by the matrix. But if we're plugging into earth, plugging into the divine, we're plugging into ourselves, and that's where our personal power comes back. And we can sort of break through that veil and just come straight back into our own center. And that's where that discernment kind of, it takes away all the need to worry about all the different voices, because you know that if you're in love, in that frequency of the heart, that's it. Like there's nothing else can exist outside of that.
I love this. Do you feel that, it's not even a do you feel like that. It is that a big part of keeping us disconnected from that channel is is the way that everything's been structured. So when you're talking about connecting to the center of self and then connecting to the center of earth and then connecting to the center of divine, it's like language like that doesn't really exist outside of woo-woo culture.
Yeah.
Whereas it's actual, that is the basis of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of structures that exist in the matrix that don't want us to know the simplicity of that truth either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that we're talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're doing some pretty profound work and you're having some really profound conversations here, but also in general. And you're talking about this on social media and you're following this mission and this path. We don't get there by chance. And we've already alluded to having to overcome or disconnect for various reasons. But what's so women can actually tune into your story and they have a chance to resonate with your story and your journey. Can you share a little bit more about how you got to this place in your journey?
Yeah. Where to
Or
start?
what were some of the things that led you to this place?
So I did already mention the dynamics between my mum and I would say that's the core of it. And it's actually the most beautiful thing. Like it hasn't felt that way in a really long time, but I see the beauty in it now. And so my mum is still with us. She's unwell. She's disabled. She's got cerebral palsy and she's had it my whole life. And it's hard to say, but she's basically all of the things that most women experience as an oppressed woman, as a depressed human in this society. She's kind of experienced it on steroids because she's got paranoia about the way she looks, and she's also got a disability she didn't even know she had, or we didn't have the language. Like I would never have called my mum disabled until last year. Like I didn't even recognize the situation. And she's such a beautiful human, but of course, all of her wounds that were amplified by a bazillion were passed down onto me. And so my journey and very distorted, like I'm in this like sort of in the last sort of 5 years having these big realizations that I'm like, I actually did not see the world the way it was. Like I didn't understand the world because I just had her view and her viewpoint. And so yeah, my journey has been coming out of this smallness, which I was kind of honoring and also just taught to live because of how my mum had to live. She had to hide. She had to hide her leg that was very visibly disabled, and she had to hide so much about herself, like in her capacity, her capabilities, and so she pushed herself through life in ways that I don't know how she did it. I don't understand it because I can't even do that, and I don't have what she's got going on. And so my journey through that has been firstly very codependent. So in the first sort of 20 years of my life, very codependent, very unable to sort of do anything for myself. Like I was so nervous. I'm a Leo stellium, by the way. I couldn't even go to the shops and ask. I couldn't even go up to the counter and order my own food. My brother had to do it. Like I was, oldest daughter taken on mother. Like I was her twin. Like it was crazy. And so in the last 5 years, especially, I would say the last 10 years, but very concentrated in the last 5 years, has been this journey of me separating from her and like, really undoing that cord of codependency and recognizing a lot of the distortions that I felt like were me. And so I couldn't even see that they were my mum's for a really long time because again, like I said, I didn't even know she had a disability because she hid it. Not that she hid it. I could see it, but I don't know. The language was just never there, and she never acted like someone who needed the help or needed the label. So that has really it sort of the first iteration of this healing journey for me was rage, anger, resentment. Like, what the fuck? Why is this me? Like, why am I so broken? Why am I so fucked up? It's like my mum did such a good job. She was such a kind, caring, this and that. But it's like, why am I so effed up? So it was this unraveling of the shadow and really getting into this point of recognizing like my inner people pleaser. And why did I resent that so much? Because it wasn't mine, it was my mom's. And she, like, I even have this memory when I was maybe 20 of I was moving house. It was a really stressful day. The woman that I was living with just decided to tell me last minute that she actually doesn't own the house and she had to move out too. So I just had to like randomly move. Yeah, it was crazy. And then my mum was helping, and we were in this car park, and I was, you're all flustered and sweaty, and someone was in front of us, and she was being, people can just be a bit of a dick sometimes. So I just gave her a little beep to be like, move, like, can I go past? That was kind of it. I pull into the car spot. A minute later, this woman's opened my door and she's punching me in the arm, like yelling at me because I beeped at her. And then I'm like, fuck you, get away from me. Like, don't touch my car. And then I have my mum punching me on the other side because she's so, don't make a sound, don't upset people. So I like, there wasn't even this like energy of like, you can defend yourself. So like, that is it. My story in a nutshell is like, I never, like, I just hide. I let people walk all over me. So that was really this journey of like, why am I like this? And then I started my spiritual journey, started really getting into understanding myself from a place of love and not just like demonizing myself and going to therapy and thinking something's wrong that I've got to fix. And what that has sort of led into at this point has been firstly the self-love game. Like I cannot even identify myself anymore, like how I see myself and speak to myself. But the biggest piece, and what I'm speaking to a lot now at the moment, is the idea of rage and how my journey with rage, because the other thing I haven't quite mentioned is my mom is fucking such a rager, and her father was. And he was like an abusive rager. So hers is a little bit different. Hers is a little bit like, kitten with no teeth. His was like proper scary, terrifying rage. And my upbringing with my mum and that story I just shared was rage was not welcome. Anger was not welcome, which I know is also a very common thing for women. And so I took on my grandfather's rage, then my mother's repressed rage was all in me. And so I've, again, back with my visualizations and how I perceive it, and in a shamanic journey I did last year, I identified that I have this pillar of flame. That is that's my beacon. Like, that's why what I'm here to do is to help people light their own or relight their own beacons from this big pillar of flame. And I'm sweating because it gets me really hot right now. And so where was I going with that? This rage inside of me was so big and so repressed that once I started letting it out, it was quite terrifying. And because I'm sure you've experienced it yourself in the spiritual space, that's a no-no. Being angry, being rageful, being resentful, being bitter. No, you're not spiritual if you're those things. And so then I went into another stage of repression where I was like, I'm wrong. And it's like, I even had friends do like healings on me and be like, you've got too much rage. I'm scared. It's like, shit, like I'm broken. And then since having my daughter, since breaking my wrist, punching a wall in rage because my mum was like attacking me with all these things, like it was this crazy experience. Broke my wrist, first broken bone my whole life. And it kind of just got to this point, I was like, okay, something's got to change. But it's not me. Like, why the fuck? And I kept feeling that it's not me that needs to change. And so that is what really began this journey of coming into like honoring of my rage, and then coming and, processing it because there was a lot, and then getting to this point of seeing it as actually a tool. And that tool is what powers our boundaries. It's what helps us to let go of being a people pleaser, to let go of being a good girl. It also helps us heal our witch wound and our sister wounds. It's just this messenger and indicator that has been firstly repressed by the patriarchy by design, because once we let that rage out, we can access our grief. Once we access our grief, that's all of our emotions. That's the deep well of power that we all hold as women. And so once we can release the well of that has been repressed, it's like we can sort of like a flame, like a dragon. Like normally it's just like, but once you get that control, it's like and then it's just a thin line of flame that gets targeted towards the boundary that's being, ignored, or towards the way someone's spoken to you in a disrespectful way. It's not out of control. It's graceful. It's loving. And it's that same energy of the catalyst where it's like, I'm holding my boundaries and I'm sending you that little flame. And you can put your candle out and light it, or you can be burned by it, but that's a you choice, and I don't have to take that on anymore. And so where I'm at now is in this place of kind of defending rage and being like, why are we pretending that rage is bad? Like after the Bondi attacks, there was quite a few different people who I deeply love and respect, and I send you so much love, blah, 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 like I love you. But all these spiritual people being like, oh, don't be angry, don't be rageful, like to people in the Israel community or the Jewish community, being like, don't be angry about this, don't spread more hate. And then on the other side, to people in like, you know, who are protesting for Palestine, being like, don't sow seeds of hate and blah, blah, blah. And I agree with that. Like, we all know that love is the answer. But if we're repressing our rage and we're pretending none of this happens, it's going to come back out. Like, we can't hide it. So we have to honor that rage. We have to use it as a tool to make change. And rage, anger, those are the catalysts for change across time. Shit changes when people are angry. So what my journey and this whole point to get to this point has been to not shame it, honor it, let your feminine rage come out, speak to your partner and say, I don't like that. Because there's just one little piece, and I actually made a post about this today. But what I'm recognizing in the journey of motherhood and the journey of like authentic feminine. So not that I'm saying other types of feminine aren't authentic, but just this version of what I'm speaking to here is this flame version, which is like tapping into the truth and tapping into what the feminine needs. We are the priestesses if we hold that frequency. Like, we are the priestesses who initiate our men into their masculine by holding that frequency. We also initiate others into their own masculine pole because we're holding them accountable with our own masculine, because that's what really is happening. Once we've honored that rage, we've brought union in the left and the right, the masculine and feminine within. So we can be that beacon. We can hold that pole for others to light their beacons within themselves. So yeah, big long story to get there.
It's a very important story, especially honoring sacred rage. And I feel like some women listening will understand everything that you've just said, and some women listening won't have a full grasp of what you're saying. And I really want this to land for them. And so what do you mean when you're talking about, by honoring our sacred rage, we then bring the masculine and the feminine together? Can you share an example of what that looks like maybe for you, just so that people can get a visual of what that means and it lands for them a little bit better?
Yeah. So I'll try not to speak. I'll speak in archetypes for just a second, just so I can lay the ground.
Yeah.
So the ideas of the masculine and feminine. So the masculine is not man. Masculine is just a archetype, which is the structure, the stability. It is boundaries, like it's kind of the holding of boundaries. So it is really just that structure, that containment. And then the feminine is the energetic of like flow and, like emotions, love, and then masculine is logic. So if we just go logic and emotion, we can just sort of go there. So when I'm talking about the sacred rage in the context of what I'm saying here, the way that I believe sacred rage has been addressed for a really long time is only seeing it as feminine. So it's only coming from that place of illogical world. So it's like very emotional, is uncontrolled, uncontainable. And so what I'm saying here and bringing in this masculine aspect to the sacred rage is bringing that containment and bringing those boundaries and bringing that structure so that it isn't uncontrolled. So in those moments where I broke my wrist because my mum had brought up something that was just really cruel at the time, that was the feminine, like that was Kali Ma chaos, like just I can't control this rage punch, right? When we've got that masculine fine tuning and we've brought in that structure and we've brought in that containment and safety, that's an important one there as well as the safety, is when we react to those same situations, it is controlled. So that same version, if that happened with my mum, I would have turned to her and I would have looked at her and I would have not seen the person who's hurting me. I would have seen the person who's hurting. And I would have seen her as I would have seen her inner child. And I would have been like, oh, I still felt that stab. I can give myself the love because I've cleared all that rage. And then I can give it to her as well. Or I can be like, here's my boundary. I'm going to walk away right now because you've upset me. That kind of thing. And so those are actually words that I've said to her recently, and her face, she's shocked. But there's no fight. There's no aggression. She might get a bit upset. However, the relationship survives. I can still be in kindness and love with her, and she can be the same to me, and we don't go completely out of control, which in the past it has been quite bad. So yeah, that's a pretty real world example of what I mean there with the
I
masculine.
like this. You gave, yeah, the example gave me a visual as well. When we think of, because you talked about emotions and logic, masculine, feminine, and then when we think of rage, and when we think of, girl gone wild, or girl gone crazy, rageful, like the images that we can see or that we can put rage to, it's usually when a woman's literally lost her marbles, and this rage is uncontrollable and it's really uncomfortable, and people are thinking, oh my God, what's her problem? Like, what's wrong with her?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's part of the repression, right? We've been taught to repress that rage and not honor the rage and not have the structure of the masculine to hold the rage. And so sometimes women will get to a point where they can't keep it in anymore, and then they go crazy, in quotes.
Yeah.
And so people have this vision of, I can't be rageful because people are going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's just that self-perpetuating thing, because it's the same for men too. Like men's rage is terrifying for most people, and people are so uncomfortable with men's rage, but men's rage is, pardon me, more quiet. So it's kind of more like kind of energetic, but it's the same thing. And it is that rage. It's like, oh, if someone does have an outburst, they are looked down upon. But then that looking down upon them is the thing that represses it, which is the thing that lets it explode. So it's just this like constant cycling I see. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think would happen if more women were modeled on how to hold and honor their sacred rage? So the work that you're doing, essentially, if more women had access to the work that you do, the teachings that you have in honoring their sacred rage. And I loved how you explained it's like a dragon, rather than going like rah all over the place. It's like this really refined, and it's like a that's a boundary, or like, get careful there. You know what I mean? It's just like this really strong, resilient, they're not the words that I want to use, but this really embodied, graceful matriarch that's, I always say you don't fuck with a matriarch. When a matriarch is fully embodied, like she is in her matriarch energy, you don't fuck with the matriarch. It's like when you go and your mum or your grandmother is like in her authority figure, and it's like, okay, she's mad. I can't lie. Like, she's gonna see through everything, and you just like, everything crumbles and you wobble and you're like, I'm so sorry. It's like, you don't fuck with the matriarch. And so when you're giving that visual, I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. It's like that don't fuck with the matriarch energy.
Yeah.
But we're so disconnected from that. Like, I don't have a lot of representation of women who are in that matriarch energy, which is why I'm creating it for myself and building an alliance, right? And I'm meeting extraordinary women such as yourself. But I feel like this is a really important conversation. So what do you feel, how do you feel the world would work? Or what do you think women will start to experience if they took on your work and your teachings?
I'm struggling to find the vision of what the world would look like, but I'm just getting this image of the wolf pack. And so, like, I'm sure you might have heard, or the way that the wolf pack works, but there's always the leader at the back, and then the sick people are in, the sick wolves, or the old wolves are in front, the vulnerable wolves are in front, and then everyone else is at the very front. What I really love about this image is that everything's kind of working. The men know, or the male wolves know what their role is. The women know what their role is. Or the female, whatever, wolves know what their role is. And everyone does protect the whole. And I think about and my best friend actually said this to me when I was struggling with parenting and just being like, oh my God, like, how do I, like, all the things that you go through. And she said something about how the wolf mother will just have a little snap at the baby if the baby is jumping on them or doing something that the mother doesn't want. And it's just this little correction. And I see that in the same way of that flame. And the thing with the wolf mother or the wolf woman, whatever, is she also holds the man accountable. And so he's being held accountable and he's maintaining the structure of the community, because she's holding the fort as well. And so it's like that dynamic of play where they've both risen to their roles. It's not one holding the other or pulling the other one up. And I think, again, just to take it to another example, I'll use one of my clients who actually came to me at the very beginning of the journey. Like, she came to me from something that I was running called Witch Wound Alchemy. It was so separate to what she's kind of come to me for, but she was having trouble with her husband and was just not happy and having all these, these things going on. And she's now at the point where she just speaks her truth. She's like not in that people pleaser energy. She's not keeping him happy. Or she is, but that's not her priority. She's keeping her needs are the factor there as well. And so he steps up. He starts to step up in ways that she didn't even know she needed. And so the dynamic of the family, they're homeschooling, the dynamic of the family is becoming so cohesive because everyone's stepped into their unique role because they're all holding each other accountable. And so I believe the more we are all doing this in our own families, and also, like, this is mean to say, but letting go of relationships that aren't going to allow us to do that, and being in our truth and being in relationships where we feel loved and respected, it's just going to be a knock-on effect. The more of us who are holding that frequency of contentment and not just pushing our own needs to the wayside, that's inspiring. Like, that is going to inspire the next person and the next person and the next person. So I do believe that matriarchal energy is transmissible just by witnessing the embodiment of it.
That was an amazing visual. You bring amazing visuals and you have the most amazing words to describe all the things. And when you're saying it, it's like landing in my body. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the thing. That's what I've been trying to explain. And I haven't had the words, and you have the words. What a remarkable visual. The wolf pack thing really resonated because I've been saying since I started the Rebel Matriarch that the future is matriarch led. Although I've changed that now to the future is now, and we are leading as matriarch now. And when I've said that in the past, men in particular have gotten their panties in a twist. They've gotten really upset with me, and they're coming in saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You'd be nowhere without men. And they took it as an offense. And obviously that's something that they need to work through. But the way that you articulated the wolf pack and how the female wolf holds the male counterpart accountable and holds them to a higher standard, and then they're able to do that for the pack. It's like, this is exactly what I meant when I said the future is matriarch led, and that it's not that we're going into leadership roles and going into governments and all the rest of it. It's literally, as women in our families, as the leaders of our families, we hold our counterparts to a higher standard. We hold our counterparts like to a higher level, and in return everyone kind of like holds a bigger dynamic, and together we lead.
Yes.
But until the matriarch, until the female wolf steps into her role, the male is going to lead in the way that the male has always led, right? It's just gonna they swing from the I don't know, they swing from the balls, they swing from the they swing from the logic. It's like like, if we look at how the patriarchy has guided humanity and the way that the men have led us, and then you look at men in today's society, there are so many beautiful men, and there are so many men that have done incredible work, but there are also so many men who have incredible women who are holding them to a higher standard, right? Absolutely. And because of all of that, I'm starting to see a shift in our men, in the masculine, in the way that they're leading, in the way that they're holding their family together, in the way that they're making big moves. But it literally comes and starts from the woman stepping up into her leadership roles as a matriarch.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for that visual.
You're welcome. And I see it the same. I mean, we can't, the definition of matriarch is an anti-patriarchy.
That's right.
It's family centered. Like, if a mother is the center, then it's family centered at its core. So of course that's what we want.
Yes. And I actually, you say that, and now I'm like, I do want to dive into a little bit about that because you became a mother. And I
Mhm.
know that when you become a mother, things change. Because there's a saying I came across it so many times as well. And it says, as a woman, I can forgive you, but as a mother, I'll never understand.
Mm.
So talking, leaning into like the mother wound and everything, right? So this, with my own journey with my mother, that resonated of as a woman I can understand why you made those choices and why it worked out the way that it did, but now that as I'm a mother I'm like fuck no, I don't get it. It's like actually that's not okay. So I'm curious to know what was your experience becoming a mother because it would have like weighed into what you're doing now.
Yeah, big time. So I actually was not going to have kids. I was very much, fuck this world. Why am I here? Like, why was I brought here? I don't want to bring a child into this. Um, and then the spirit of the baby came,
Yep.
and it started to get really loud, and I couldn't deny it anymore. And it led to the breakup of me and my partner because he didn't want kids.
Mm.
And then magically, he went and did his own plant medicine ceremony at the same place that I had my awakening with the bees. And the spirit baby came to him. So that kind of shifted things for us. And we got back together, and it was just this real, it was a trip because I didn't have the relationship with my mum that I do now. I thought things were fine, like we were she definitely hated my mentor, my shamanic mentor, because she's like, oh, it's that Beata again telling you, putting things in your head, because if we'd fight and stuff. But for the most part, it was quite cohesive. But then when I was pregnant, so I was pregnant during COVID, and no shade on anyone who does makes the choices that they make, but I was not getting a fucking shot into my body when I had a baby, experimental shots, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of that point where I had people telling me to do things that were so outside of my intuition that I started to really see what it meant to be a mum. So I wasn't even technically a mum yet. I was carrying the baby, but I hadn't had her yet. And then I had a home birth, so I really it started to radicalize me from the moment I met the spirit baby, really, where I was like, I'm not doing hospital, like I want to homeschool. Like I could already see all of those pieces, and I didn't know how I was going to make it work and all of that. And then yeah, it kind of did just get to that point of like, how could you treat me like that? Like I was like, I see my daughter and I'm like, you're so easy to love and you are so easy to want to be around. In saying that, like at this stage that we're at now, and she's 4 and things are ramping up, I can actually see the point for my mum where that shifted. So I think my experience as a child was probably quite similar to what my daughter's had up until this point. But as soon as I started to become my own person and started to become that mirror for my mum, that's when it all crumbled. And living it now and having to, you feel those cycles wanting to repeat in you. And I feel the same. I feel like I'm living out my own childhood a lot of the time with the interaction that I have. And I have to pull myself in and say, do you want to repeat this or do you want to shift it? Because you know how you felt, like, all the rage you've had. And so it's been this real, like, just this constant push and pull of wanting to forgive my mum, wanting to forgive myself, wanting to do better, wanting to hold myself to a higher standard. But then also if I fuck up and if I get angry or if I do yell or if I, whatever, how do I stay in that without coming to a place of complete self-judgment and then also love my mum? So that's been the real biggest tension for me is holding those two kind of pillars. And I finally feel like they're starting to come together. And I'm not beating myself up if I do get frustrated or, because that's the thing, like compared to my childhood, and I'm sure it's the same for you, compared to your childhood, it's like even our fuck ups are nothing compared to what we experienced. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting tension to be the cycle breaker who's like not just doing it because you're doing it and it's naturally happening, but because you're consciously choosing to break these cycles. I think that's the power. And I think that's kind of what I was speaking to before about this idea of priestess, being a priestess as a mother. If you're on this conscious journey and this is the devotion, this is the devotion that they used to have in the temples that we are now translating into modern day evolution of humanity. And I really do believe that it is mothers at the forefront of that, because the kids are the ones who are coming next and they're going to hold that. So, yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful. Can
Mm.
you speak a little bit more about the history of like priestesshood? Because the word is thrown around a lot, especially in the spiritual world. But then there's also a lot of women that hear it and don't resonate with it because it just sounds woo woo.
Yeah.
But there's an actual history to it, and it sounds like you know a fair bit about that. Are you able to
Mm.
give like a small history lesson on what you mean by, the ancient priestess as it was, and then how we're translating it into modern times?
Yeah. So the original priestesses were the ones who would tend to the temple, tend to the collective's connection to the divine. And so it was like just this place of worship that the rest of the community could trust in their own connection to the divine because it's being held by the priestesses. So it meant that the average person didn't have to devote, hours of their time to meditating, and, they could just light a little piece of incense or whatever, and that could be their devotion for the day. And so the priestesses were the ones who sat in meditation for hours and communed with God and, drank the plant medicines and created the plant medicines to help people, and the yeah, just medicine in general was held in the priestess temples. And they were also the initiators. And so they would initiate other women into their womanhood by holding like red tents and, holding the rites for bleeding. And then they also initiated men into their manhood through sex. And so that has definitely evolved since then. And the way that it used to be, the way that it used to operate, like, having sex to initiate a man into his manhood, there was ways that other, earlier tribes or later tribes would initiate men, which would be they'd have to go and do some extreme 5-day fast in the desert. And, that is nature. That is earth. Like, that is God, really, to be in those, to be in the outback and just completely connected to yourself. I said outback like it's an Australian thing, but and so like that was one way. And then the priestesses were also nature. So they were the same as going out into the wild and being with nature for those amount of days, but it was coming into this place of surrender and trust and opening of the self to the priestess so that you could be initiated, and however it worked. I don't fully remember exactly how they did it. It wasn't just sex, like it was full ritualistic, and it wasn't just a passing of fluids, but it was very beautiful and well planned out and everything. Obviously that's not the way it works anymore. We also know that a lot of the priestess temples are gone. The ancient Greeks, the ancient Egyptian ones, the pagan ones are all gone mostly. However, in the same way that spirituality has evolved, because the other thing as well is in the days of the priestess, all of this information was mystery. Like it had to be encoded so that only people who could, who were ready and could understand the messages and the divine information, it had to be encoded and used and written in symbols and that kind of thing. So only the priestesses could read that. That can't exist anymore because of things like AI and because of the internet. So we have access to everything. Everything that is available, we can access, unless it's in like a temple or, a museum or something. So the difference here is how much we've evolved and what our roles are now as women, and how. So the other thing I didn't say, so yes, my name is Melissa, but my surname, Russell, if I trace it back to the very first people that came to Australia, it's Rose. So I've actually got a connection to the rose, to the lineage of the rose through that lens. And I'm not the only one. There's so many people out there who have, whether they have it by blood or just by past life lineage, they have that connectedness to the priestesshood. So many women will probably have a vast connection to ancient Egypt. The amount of women that I've worked with that have told me that when they were kids, they wanted to be an archaeologist. I was too, because they were
Yeah, yeah.
just fascinated and connected to that. So these are the women who are, we've chosen to come into this timeline, this time, because we are now resurrecting those practices through the modern lens. And so I'm not saying that we're supposed to be doing, having sex with men to initiate them. But I do believe that it is actually many of our roles to initiate our men, not through sex, but through that fire. And so that's how the more we're in that fire, the more we're in that truth. I think sex is probably a part of it because a lot of us are in relationship. But the amount of men that I've had come onto my comment section or send me messages in DMs that I don't have any interest in working with men at this point, but they come in and they hear my words or they see my relationship and they say that has changed something for me, that has woken something up in me, or it's made them want to step up in their own way. And that's not me intending on having any kind of dynamic with that person. It's me, kind of holding that pillar for my partner and asking him to, holding him to that higher standard. And it inspires other men into that. And so I really do, what I see here is whether you're a mother or not, if you're devoted to something, so creators, we are creators. If we are creating something and birthing something and doing it in a way that is so tapped into the truth of what we need and what we have to offer, and, we create that bubble and let go of all the shoulds and the woulds and all of that coming from the outside, that to me is the priestesshood. And so like authentic mothering, conscious mothering, artists, poets, coaches, people who are just fucking doing the thing, that is priestesshood. That is modern day priestesshood to me, whether it's about initiating men or not. But then those of us who are in those divine union partnerships, I do believe that's our role. And it's our unique way of being in devotion that will activate that for them. So however that manifests.
That's so juicy. I love this. Can you share some examples of what it looks like when you hold your partner to a higher standard in way of, initiating him into manhood? Because so many of us are in relationship, but we don't know what that means. What is that dynamic, right? We're so confused. No one's modeled to us what a healthy relationship looks like, what leadership looks like. It's not just like the man leading, but leadership is for men and women in a relationship, but we don't know what that looks like. Can you share some examples so that women can go, oh, I do that, or oh, I don't do that?
Yeah. So I've just heard them come home so I can hear my daughter out there. Just trying to think of one that happened today. There was one that came through today. I mean, I can just bring it to like a really simple one, like
Yes.
dishes, right? So me and my partner don't care too much about dishes. We'll wash them when they need to be washed. However, there's that line of, are we going to just expect it all to be on me, or are we going to step up and sort of do the dishes together? So it's always that level of like, okay, I'll do half. I won't even be like, oh, can you do them? I've done my half. Your half is there, ready, kind of thing. So it's just an expectation. Or another example, so I work in a Pilates studio and I do very early shifts sometimes. And one of those shifts I have, my partner would be looking after my daughter, but he's going to be away. And instead of me going, oh, okay, I'll fix it, I'll sort out the childcare, it's his job. So I don't even say, oh, I'll fix it. I'm just like, okay, what's the plan kind of thing. So it's just like this passing it back kind of energy of like, oh, I'm not going to take it all on. And a somatic way that I can sort of identify that as well in the way that plays out is what happens for us as women is we see, firstly, anyone else's need. I think most of us can identify with this if we've got people pleaser vibes. We see someone else's need, we drop our needs and go and sort their need out. And even more so with men. So we see a man need something and we're like, whoa, flutter hands to fix it, to make them comfortable. And feeling that internally, it kind of like rises up from the yoni, from inside the tummy, and it's like this heat that comes up and it wants to go somewhere. And so that's usually that flustering energy of like, gotta fix. My version of that is to let that energy do its thing. I might go move my body and then come back and say, or not even anything. It might just be like, I can see someone needs something and I'm really uncomfortable. I want to do something about it. I'm just going to go outside and go for a walk kind of thing. And just like letting it still have a place to go, but not in a way that I'm abandoning myself and my own needs. Yeah.
So it's very much when they say when you're in a relationship with men, especially, to not bring your mothering vibes. Because you hear that spoken about a lot, that we mother our men. And
Yeah.
pretty much what you just said was to, when you feel that urge to mother,
Yeah.
feel the discomfort of holding it and not mothering them, and actually, you know, like allowing them to step up to the occasion and lead.
Absolutely. And that's what I think is the big thing there is the allowance of allowing them to step up because I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a like a little not a meme, but just a thing going around that's saying male fetuses are less likely to survive in the womb of a stressed mother. So the chromosomes will shift into a female body if there's too much cortisol in the mother's body in the prenatal period.
Hmm.
So men can't handle stress. And that's not to say that they can't really, it's just that they have a different biological formation that's happening in the womb. But I think there's something there that we have this natural inclination to believe that men can't handle it because we have been the ones who have held the depth of the emotion and the depth of just all of it for such a long time that we have this assumption that we do that because of that reason. And then I also wonder if we have that sort of biological knowing that that is something that happens, that the cortisol is too much for the little fetuses. So we have this desire to help and to placate and to make comfortable when really it is that opportunity for them to rise and to be in that discomfort, and to build, I don't want to say resilience, but to build that window of tolerance to hold space for things that are deeper than they ever have, because we're holding it and because we've actually created that masculine frame for them to experience what we experience, and then they get to build their own, and it kind of just creates that positive cycle that we want rather than that negative one of just looping through untoward things.
Yes. I love the way that you explain things. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Yes, I love this so much. Something for me to contemplate too, which is good, and to deepen
Same.
that.
I always
Yeah.
do. Like I say all these things, but it's not perfect.
Well, it's about evolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then as you go through different stages of life, you're always going to come up against, that next iteration of self
Yeah,
and what it looks like as a couple
exactly.
and as an individual in a couple. So
Mm.
it's good that we have these conversations, and I'm excited for women to receive this.
Good.
Now, if a woman is interested in knowing more about what you do, because you have a fire that you bring and you have a desire that you want women to experience, and I feel like there's many different ways that women can work with you. What are some of those ways that women can work with you?
Mm. So I do actually have something coming out, but I haven't fully announced it, but I will say the name here because I love the name so much. But it's called the Order of the Hidden Flame. And so it's basically a journey of discovering your purpose, discovering all of these pieces, unraveling from the shadow and the shame and all of that, and really just stepping into that power. That isn't really starting until the end of January. However, prior to that, I have something called the confessional. So that I haven't really started advertising that yet, but it's called the confessional, and it is based in using your sacred rage to manifest your actual desires and stepping into something so juicy and so impactful in your own life and letting go of that rage, or letting that rage kind of um, refine, like we talked about before. And then, of course, you can just work with me one on one. I do have some spaces one on one at the moment. And yeah, I don't have any official programs for that. It's just one on one, whatever you want, work.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I always love to drop all your social links and anything, your websites in the show notes as well, so people can access you that way. But it's also nice to hear from you
Yeah, absolutely. And
how
I'm always
women.
changing. I'm not consistent.
That's it. You're following the flow, right?
Yeah,
The flow within the masculine container.
that's it. Well, this year I am. This year the
Yeah,
container is fully established.
I love it. Yes, me too. 2026 is going to be a very big year, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
So, to wrap up the call, is there something you feel called to share, or is there something you really want women to know about what it is that you teach so that they can take it into their lives and start applying it today?
So I'm big on somatics. The thing I would suggest for everyone, I wish everyone could hold, is to identify that feeling in the body. Because I believe, I know everything starts in the body. Everything, especially as women, is about the feeling. And if we can start to tune into those feelings and honor those feelings, that's how we really start to get that connection to our truth, our inner power in the solar plexus. And so just like an actual actionable way to do that is something else was just coming through then. So firstly, what I would invite people to identify is that feeling of rushing. So you're feeling like you want to rush, rush, rush and do something. So that's the first one I want to invite people to identify is when you feel that, slow down. Because what's happening when you're feeling that rush is you're rushing to get whatever it is that needs to be done so that you can get to the thing that you actually want to do. So if we can slow that down, take a breath, not let it overwhelm our own needs, the actual need will come through and that's the inner pulse. It might be, I need to go have a drink. I need to go to the toilet. I need to have a chocolate. Like it could be, I need to feel pleasure. I need to go push the wall because I feel really angry. But once we can let that settle, that energetic settle, we can really see what is underneath that need and honor it and do honor it. Like keep honoring even the micro needs, because the more we honor those needs, the more guidance we receive, the more our guides will share with us, guidance that we need. And yeah, the more in tune we get with our intuition and our bodies.
I feel so called out right now. When you said that, when you feel like you're rushing, slow down, because it usually means that you're wanting to get to the thing that you actually want to do. And I was like, oh my God, the amount of times that I've lost my shit with my kids or my partner or anyone else, because I'm like, you're not cooperating. And I'm like, it's because I wanted to get to the thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And half the time we don't even know what that thing is. We're just too busy up here that we can't even identify it. So
that was brilliant. Okay, I'm going to start doing that too. And start
Good, me too.
And honoring.
Yeah.
More. It's always to have good to have a reminder, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really loved it. I know that there's so much more depth to it and width to it and height to it, but we got to honor people's time. So it's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story and hearing the way you explain things and articulate things, and the visuals you've given me have impacted me already. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so excited for women to receive your medicine through this podcast. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's such a pleasure and honor.
Yay. I love this. Okay. Thank you for being here, gorgeous woman, for rising with us, remembering with us, and refusing to shrink inside a world that benefits from your silence. If this episode moved you, cracked you open, or reminded you of who the hell you are becoming, share it with a woman who is ready to rise too. I want to invite you to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating so this message becomes too loud, too wild, and too undeniable to be ignored. The movement grows because of women like you, women who choose truth over comfort, liberation over obedience, and voice over disappearance. You can connect with me, Samantha Sanford, at Rebel Matriarch, and all links to our guest are in the show notes below. Until next time, stay rooted, stay rebellious, and remember, the world changes when women refuse to disappear.